Fox News Podcasts presents the Bret Baier Podcast with Fox News Chief Political Anchor Bret Baier.
We are pleased to welcome Vice President JD Vance, who spoke to workers here at the Nucor Steel plant in South Carolina earlier today. Mr. Vice President, thanks for the time.
Good to see you.
I want to talk to you about all this trip and what the purpose of it and your speech.
Sure.
But I want to start with the breaking news.
Yeah.
Why was Mike Waltz let go?
So he wasn't let go. He is being made ambassador to the United Nations, which of course is a Senate-confirmed position. I think you can make a good argument that it's a promotion. But we brought Mike on to do some serious reforms of the National Security Council. He has done that. I like Mike. I think he's a great guy. He's got the trust of both me and the president. But we also thought that he'd make a better UN ambassador as we get beyond this stage of the reforms that we've made to the National Security Council. You saw the president announce that Marco Rubio is going to step in as interim leader of the National Security Council. I think the media wants to frame this as a firing. Donald Trump has fired a lot of people. He doesn't give them Senate-confirmed appointments afterwards. What he thinks is that Mike Waltz is going to better serve the administration, most importantly, the American people in that role, and I happen to agree with him.
But was it a direct result of the Signal chat? I mean, you were on that chat, and we saw the fallout from it. Is this a result of that?
No, it's not, Bret. I mean, look, what we came into the administration, and of course the president in his first term had some serious issues with the National Security Council. He said, Mike, you need to go in here, fire, frankly, a lot of people who aren't loyal to my agenda, who we think aren't even loyal to the American people, bring in the right collection of people to actually make the National Security Council function. And Mike has done that. And now it's time for Mike to do something else because he's done the job that I think he was asked to do. If the president wanted to fire him over the Signal thing, which, by the way, was a total nothing burger of a story, he would have just done it. But he actually decided it's better for Mike to be in this new role. He's given Mike the new role. That's it.
So what is the message to allies around the world? I mean, is Pete Hegseth safe as Defense Secretary? Are there other changes coming?
Well, again, I think certainly yes, Pete Hegseth is safe, and I think our cabinet secretaries, you saw yesterday the president, they're all doing a great job. On Pete in particular, I think the thing that is most underappreciated about Pete Hegseth and the great job that he's doing is we came in with the military with a serious morale problem. Recruitment and retention goals in most of the major services were way off. Pete has brought a certain esprit de corps. I think the leadership style has inspired a lot of people to join the military. We're now exceeding our recruitment goals. So yes, we've got total faith in Pete, but even the question, Bret, I think betrays a certain misunderstanding of what the goal here is. Mike Waltz is being moved from one administration job into a separate administration job where he has Senate confirmation. That's not, I think, what it's being framed as. That's the president deciding a guy who's a very good guy in Mike Waltz could do a better job at a different role.
And he's going to fight for him in the Senate.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, we fight for all of our nominees.
Yeah,
I think we actually got all of our nominees through.
You did. You recorded your skepticism about launching a military operation against the Houthis on that Signal chat. You were kind of overruled, if you will, about those concerns from the Defense Secretary and the National Security Advisor. And that open-ended bombing has entered its 48th day. 48 straight days of U.S. bombing. What does that say? Is the U.S. prepared to strike Iran based on what we're seeing with the Houthis?
Let me say a couple things, Bret. First of all, if you go back to when those messages were leaked, what we were doing is having a private strategic conversation about how to message this to the American people. It's always important to explain what you're actually doing, how to ensure that some of the, frankly, our allied countries that are underspending on their own defense are actually carrying some of the burden. That was a concern that I raised about this particular operation. But I wasn't overruled. What happened is the president.
I'm sorry,
no, it's fine. But the president. But let me be clear.
Expressed concerns that they
Yes.
won the day as far as the policy.
No, I think the president had made his desires clear, and our job is to implement it. And of course, part of implementing it is you talk about how best to do that, about when to actually launch a strike and so forth. And that's what the Signal chat revealed. And frankly, I thought it reflected well on me. I'm obviously biased about myself, but about Mike Waltz and Pete Hegseth, that we were deliberating how to implement the president's agenda. I think that's what a good national security team should do. But you asked about the Houthi campaign. I mean, I think, we're already seeing signs that the Houthis are saying saying no mas. They've been bombed. They've recognized that there are serious consequences to firing on American and other ships. And I actually think we're in a good place for the Houthis to stop attacking civilian vessels, to go back to doing whatever it is they were doing before they were attacking civilian vessels. And I think that if that were happening, then this bombing campaign would be over the next day.
You hear the criticism, though, from libertarians, from the left,
Sure,
that this is the new Vietnam. This is 48 days of bombing. People in the middle of the country may not know that we're in the middle of a hot war with Yemen. What do you say to that?
Well, not with Yemen, with a terrorist organization
Inside
that has been firing on American ships. And I think that people, want to compare this to Vietnam. Come on. I think that the president has made it very clear that one of his core national security priorities is that if you load stuff onto a ship and you send it to the United States, we want to make sure that it shows up without the sailors getting killed, without the ship being destroyed. That is an objective that we're going to pursue forcefully if we have to.
With this Mike Waltz change, and I know you say it's ascension to the U.S. ambassador, but is this a change in policy? Is this a message in any way, shape, or form that it's a change?
Yeah. So if I can give some background into that question, Bret, I've already seen some folks saying that this is a war between the hawks and the anti-hawks, the
MAGA,
neoconservatives versus MAGA, or the realists. That's not what this is about at all. Mike is a person, one, I think he's a good guy. He has my complete trust, and I know the president really likes Mike Waltz. He just thought that the UN ambassador position would be a better place for Mike Waltz to be. But the entire idea that this is about a national security team, and I know why the media wants to report this story, because it's an exciting story. It's also a fake story.
Let's talk about your tour here. I was on it. It's very impressive, this facility.
It is.
What's the message you're sending?
I thought you were saying the tour. Thank you, Bret.
Yeah. No, it's very impressive. The facility here is really something.
It is.
What's the message you're sending by the tour?
Well, there are a couple things. First, I didn't fully appreciate how high-tech this steelmaking facility was. There's a lot of criticism that Donald Trump is trying to bring back the jobs of the past. These are the jobs of the future. Making American steel, building bridges and automobiles, homes for American people, and doing it in an incredibly sophisticated way. I just wanted to get a tour of one of the most high-tech steelmaking facilities of the world. I also, of course, wanted to meet the workers, because what President Trump has said, he's been clear about this, not just since his first term, but going back to the 1980s when he was talking about this stuff on Oprah and Phil Donahue. The president thinks that we have to make more of our own stuff.
The economy shrank. First time in 3 years. People are pointing to the tariff policy. There are people looking at their 401ks that are worried. What do you tell them? Is this going to work?
So the first thing is, when you talk about the economy, this is Joe Biden's economy, and we inherited $2 trillion of debt, the highest peacetime deficits in American history, a $1.2 trillion trade deficit, which fundamentally means we're not making enough of our own stuff. And the president came in and he said, this is not always going to be easy. It would have been very easy for Donald Trump to do what administrations past have done, which is borrow a lot of money and continue fueling the national debt. He said, no, we need a reset. We need American workers to have better jobs. We need to protect the jobs that they have right now. And we need to be more self-reliant as an economy, which, by the way, will drive down those skyrocketing levels of debt that we've seen. That is what he promised he was going to do. And he came in and we've started that process. Now, you're right, Bret. It doesn't happen overnight. This isn't always going to be easy. But if you think about what he's doing, he's saying for 40 years, with the exception of his first term, you had American leadership who were fundamentally offshoring America's wealth and prosperity to foreign companies. He's saying we're going to reshore America's wealth and make this the golden century for our country.
We'll hear more after this.
You traveled to India. Is that the first deal that's coming through?
I don't know if it'll be the first deal. I think it'll be among the first deals for sure. Pretty soon. The president, look, we've got negotiations with Japan, with Korea. We've got negotiations going on with some folks in Europe, and obviously we've got a good negotiation going on in India. What the president has said is we just want to rebalance trade. So some of the conversations I've had in India, for example, I think most Americans may not know, may not appreciate this. We have great agricultural products. Our farmers are making great things, but the Indian market is effectively closed off to American farmers. So what that means is that makes American farmers and American consumers more reliant on foreign competitors to grow the food that we eat. What our India deal will do fundamentally, I think, is open up India to American technology. It'll open up India to American farmers. It'll create more good American jobs. And it's the kind of trade deal that Donald Trump loves. You know, he's not anti-trade. He's anti-unfair trade. He's anti the kind of trade where foreign competitors take advantage of us. The Indians, let's be honest, they've taken advantage of us for a very long time. Modi, the prime minister, is a tough negotiator, but we're going to rebalance that relationship, and that's why the president's doing what he's doing.
You worried about India and Pakistan?
Well, sure. I'm worried about any time you see a hot spot breaking out, especially between two nuclear powers. We've obviously been in close contact with our friends in India and Pakistan. Our hope here is that India responds to this terrorist attack in a way that doesn't lead to a broader regional conflict. And we hope, frankly, that Pakistan, to the extent that they're responsible, cooperates with India to make sure that the terrorists, sometimes operating in their territory, are hunted down and dealt with. That's how we hope this unfolds. We're obviously in close contact. We'll see what happens.
The president was in the Vatican, had this iconic image talking to Volodymyr Zelensky in those two chairs and huddled down. A much different scene than when he was last in the White House, as you well know. Where do you see that? Is that going to come to fruition?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to give the president some credit here because there was a really big breakthrough and hasn't gotten that much coverage. But for 3 years, these sides have fought. And each of them has said, no peace, we're going to fight until the other guy is basically knocked out. What we've seen now in the last couple of weeks is each side has put down, this is our peace proposal. The Ukrainians did it, the Russians did it. And now I think the question is to see whether we can actually find some middle ground here for these guys to bring this conflict to a close. I really don't believe that any person, of the 8 billion people in the world, I don't think anybody could have gotten this deal done other than Donald J. Trump. When I say this deal, I mean getting these guys to actually propose a peace settlement, but it's going to be up to the Russians and the Ukrainians. Now that each side knows what the other's terms for peace are, it's going to be up to them to come to an agreement and stop this brutal conflict. It's not going anywhere, Bret. It's not going to end anytime soon. And I think for the Ukrainians, yes, of course, they're angry that they were invaded, but are we going to continue to lose thousands and thousands of soldiers over a few miles of territory this or that way? I hope both of them come to their senses. And if they do, it will be because Donald J. Trump, I think, brokered one of the great peace deals of the 21st century.
I mean, you got the minerals deal. You got that signed. So you're optimistic. Can I say optimistic?
Look, I am optimistic, but it is ultimately, it's hard to say confident because the Russians and the Ukrainians, they're the ones who have to take the final step. We got them talking. We got them offering peace proposals. We got the minerals deal done. I think we're in a place where they've got to say, we're done with the fighting. We're done with losing thousands and thousands of young people. We're done with this. But only Russia and Ukraine can make that decision. That's not something even President Trump can do for them.
Federal judge bans the use of Alien Enemies Act to deport illegal immigrants. What's your reaction to that? There are a lot of lawsuits, a lot of judges weighing in. This one seems like it's pretty significant.
So 3 quick reactions. First of all, the judge doesn't make that determination whether the Alien Enemies Act can be deployed. I think the President of the United States is the one who determines whether this country is being invaded, and under the Biden administration it was. And number 2, of course, district court judges can make their rulings. We're aggressively appealing this stuff. We do think that the higher appeals courts, and in particular the Supreme Court, is going to recognize immigration enforcement is a core function of the President of the United States. If you tell the President he's not allowed to deport illegal criminals, then you're telling the President he's not allowed to be the President. We reject that. We think the Supreme Court's going to reject that. But the final point here, Bret, is we knew this was going to happen. We knew that there are very well-funded, very passionate, far-left interest groups who love, I don't know why they love it, but they love having violent criminals. They love having 20 million illegal aliens in the United States of America. We don't love that. We were elected to change it. We didn't think it was going to be easy. The president in particular, he said they're going to try to stop us at every single step of the way from deporting the millions of illegal immigrants that Joe Biden let in. But he's doing his job. I'm doing my job. And I think that we're going to get there.
Are you running point on the big, beautiful bill? Are you going to be active in trying to get that across the finish line? And where is it?
Well, I talked to John Thune about it last night, actually, and I would say the people running point fundamentally are Mike Johnson and John Thune, because they're the great Senate and House leadership that we have that are actually negotiating some of the legislative deal making. Look, Bret, I feel very good about it. I think that we've got every legislative win we've wanted thus far. Yes, of course, I'll be working it aggressively, but when you ask, will I be the point person? I guarantee you who's going to make a lot of phone calls is Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States. I'll make a lot of phone calls. I'm sure Mike Johnson, the Speaker, and John Thune, the Majority Leader, will work it too. We're just going to get this done. If we don't do it, Bret, very simply on the policy, because I know the politics matter, but if we don't do this, millions and millions of Americans are going to see the biggest tax increase they've seen in a generation. We can't let that happen. When we say we want to rebuild American manufacturing, part of that is making it easier for American businesses to invest in our country. The big, beautiful bill is a core part of that.
Cutting spending is a core part.
Sure.
DOGE has done things. I interviewed Elon and all his team. What do you think about that as he's exiting the stage?
Well, first of all, he's not really exiting the stage. I mean, he came in saying, I'm going to work on this for 6 months. And he's not going to disappear, by the way. He's still going to play a regular role. He's just not going to be in Washington every single day because he's got a day job, right? So I think that what they've already done is amazing. And I think that I'm optimistic, I should say. You never know until you know, right? We're not going to know the full scale of DOGE savings in 2026 until we get to 2026. But I actually think that what we'll look back and have said is we cut out a ton of waste and fraud in our own government, and we saved the American taxpayers hundreds of billions and maybe more dollars through this effort. One of the biggest improvements in government efficiency we've seen in the history of our republic. I think a very, very good thing for the American people.
Mr. Vice President, thank you for the time. Thank you for taking me to a place where I had to wear a hard hat. I mean, that's always good.
We had a good time.
Really
Thanks,
appreciate
man.
it.
Good to see you,
Thank
Bret.
you.
Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.